As you go into the studio, you sit down with your snacks and your coffee, and you're ready to get this show out. You are working with a host who has an amazing message that they want to get out. With that being said, now you are working behind the scenes to get this show out, to get this message out, because that is why people have a podcast, because they are sharing a message. This can be in the, as a business owner, sharing what they know so that they can market their services. They use the podcast as a marketing tool. Then there's others that just want to share a message and make an impact in some way or another. And the people on the other side, the consumers, they have it in their ear, they're watching, and they're understanding this message. And knowing this is what makes working in the podcast industry incredible. So going back to, you're ready to get this amazing show out there, knowing it goes live Tuesday. Great. So now you're sitting down and you're gathering all the assets. And then come to find out, there's a file missing and you need the brand colors because the host that you're working with is requesting an audiogram. An audiogram needs the brand colors. You need the audio file. So now you're wondering, I know this is here, but where am I finding this? You know that it was delivered by the host. You know that it's somewhere either in your Dropbox or in your Google Drive. And this is just the last piece that you need to get done. But in order to finish this piece, you need the file, you need the brand colors. It's frustrating because this is you are wanting to make sure that when everything is delivered to the client, to the host, they have everything. Here's the kicker. This is where podcast operations come into play. And I'm not talking about the editing, the writing the show notes, the creating the content for social media, the clips for YouTube. I'm not talking about the content creation. I'm talking about the one that is creating the systems, the one that is delegating out to the team. And the podcast operations person is the one that is delivering the final product. I say product because that is the deliverable that you are providing to your host. The final, that's what they get, and that is what goes live. So these are the steps that happen before the team starts processing the audio, writing the show notes, doing all the creation of the show itself. So the recording happens first, and that is from the host, the one that is sharing the message. And there's two ways that the files can get delivered. They either deliver it to you and you get that notification in your email saying that the files have been uploaded, or you can go into the recording studio and get those files. Then the podcast operations manager is now taking everything for that show and going into a project management tool. My favorite is Asana. It's very user-friendly and it's easy to set up workflows. So everything gets delegated out, the due dates, who's doing what, the steps that need to go into creating that one episode. Because remember, there are so many aspects, so many moving parts to just one single podcast episode. So you have to understand that there needs to be a step-by-step workflow so that everybody gets what they need, when the due dates are. And the podcast operations manager is the one that is delegating these out and then adds all the files to the folders, everything that is pertaining to that show. When everything is organized, each team member is going to get that notification that they have a task. They have that due date. And in order for the next step to happen, the first step needs to be done first. So let's for example, I working with her shows. There's multiple shows at any given time. And the first step is to delegate out the episode. Somebody needs to edit it, then it gets reviewed, and once it's edited, we get the transcript so that we know that this is the right information from the edited version of the transcript, the show notes, depending on what the host wants in their show. There's some get content creation, some get blogs, newsletters. So everything is going to be in the project management tool so that everything is laid out and saying this is due first, this is due second, and then I will step in and get it uploaded to schedule out for that, and then email the client and say, hey, your episode is live. Here is all your assets from this folder. If there is something needed in this whole process and you notice that a track is missing, or you're missing the brand colors, or whatever it is that you need to help you get the show out is missing, then reaching out to the host right then and there so that you're not scrambling last minute and everything gets done when it's supposed to get done. Every file needs to be labeled. You're going to probably get files that have like numbers and like all these weird things, especially if you export from Riverside, it's going to have like Riverside and like a name. Like it's a lot, but you want to make sure that it says the show name in the episode, or however it needs to be identified, so that when it's uploaded to Google Drive or Dropbox, your team knows what is what. And then once it's finalized and it's final, then you can label it as final version episode 2. Now, going back to the beginning. So at the beginning, we were talking about you're sitting down, you're going to go do this one task and realizing that something is missing. But knowing now there is a process and there is somebody that is managing everything, now you should feel relief, feeling that, yes, we have everything that we need because somebody is managing everything behind the scenes. The editor just has to worry about editing. The writer just has to worry about writing. The person that's, graphic designs are just worrying about that because they have everything they need. There are systems in place. There is ways for communication because everything is delegated out in a way that makes sense. Of course, this does seem obvious, like, duh, like we should have workflows, but more often than not, we get so into our head, we get so busy because everything is in our head, and we just we know that it needs to get done, and it's not written out clearly. You need to have expectations from the start. For your team to grow, for your team to be able to do what they need to do to get just one episode. Now, that's one episode. A podcast is usually weekly shows. Some are bi-weekly, some are monthly. It all depends on the host and what they want. But you have to make sure there are systems in place, and they just keep it simple. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. And the person that should be worrying about this, should be making sure that everything is to par, is the podcast operations manager, the one that making sure that this episode is going to go out when it needs to go out. Going back to expectations. So every time you could be a podcast manager, you can be a podcast agency, you can just be a podcast host. So in the podcast space, right? Every time something new happens and you know that is what you're going to do, create standard operating procedures. So as a podcast manager, you get a new client in. Okay, every client is going to look different. Every client is going to want different things for their podcast. One might just want audio and show notes, and that is it. One might want video, show notes, editing reels, social media engagement, whatever it is. Every client is going to have their own folder. Every client's going to have their own SOP. And this is going to help you in the long run, because in order for your team to grow, in order for you to grow as the business owner, the one that is running this whole amazing podcast operations, you need to make sure that their systems. Yes, sometimes it seems like, oh, I don't want system. Like, well, I do, but it seems so daunting. I don't know what to do. And this is why I'm bringing this to light. I am going to come to you and talk to you as much as I can and say, hey, like, let's look at this and making sure that everything is where it needs to be. If you're ready to see how this works for you, you can book a free call with me. This call is going to help with brainstorming, with getting everything out, making sure that, your questions are answered, because I help you build, grow, and manage your teams so that you can focus on the bigger picture of your business. And then in the meantime, if you ever have any questions or you just want to have a conversation, you can definitely reach out to me, and all my information is going to be down in the description. I'll talk to you later.